Hello. In this video, I will be discussing a question that surprisingly very few people have asked before. Namely, whether the Pixar shorts have anything to add to the Pixar theory, or if they can even exist within the same universe. A few people have discussed this, perhaps most prominently Seamus Gorman, who concluded that due to inconsistencies in the Up shorts, the Pixar shorts do not have to be considered in the Pixar theory. However, as these inconsistencies are with the feature film the shorts were released with, rather than with other feature films or the Pixar theory, they must simply be errors made by the screenwriters, and thus do not need to be considered in the Pixar theory as a whole if we do bring the shorts into consideration. In this video, I will be discussing the theatrical shorts, the Disney Plus shorts, the Spark shorts, the Toy Story tunes, and the home entertainment shorts. I won't be discussing the Cars tunes because most theorists agree that these are merely products of Mater's imagination. Before I talk about the shorts, in case you're not familiar with the Pixar theory, here's a brief recap. First, we have the Good Dinosaur, which shows that the Pixar universe split from our universe when the meteor that wiped out the dinosaurs in our universe missed. Animals can thrive without human presence and develop human-like intelligence, and that humans eventually became the dominant force. Next, we have Brave, which shows various interactions between humans and animals, and the strong presence of magic, and sets the stage for the intellectual evolution of animals. More significantly, this is one of the three films I would say are most central to the Pixar theory, and one of two to feature arguably the most important person in the Pixar theory. We'll get to why later. Next, we have The Incredibles, which shows the creation of artificial intelligence through the Omnidroid, and sentient machines through the residual zero-point energy, the newest force in conflicts between the humans and animals. In Ratatouille, Finding Nemo and Finding Dory, tensions between the humans and the animals build, yet we find out in Finding Dory that human presence and their energy can help animals reach new potential. The Toy Story franchise shows that humans also act as batteries for sentience in machines, and it also shows the growing animosity between humans and machines. Up, in addition to showing the animal side of things and one of the intelligent dinosaurs' last descendants, shows some of the middle stages of the machine's plan to take over through By and Large, an idea originally inspired by the screenslaver's plan in Incredibles 2, and furthered by the realization that humans were batteries. Ultimately, the intelligent animals rebel against the humans, but since the machines need the humans for their sentience, the machines assist the humans and wipe out almost all the animals. This doesn't take place on screen. At this point, the company By and Large has taken over the world's governments, and the machines have the ability to wipe out the human race, but they don't wish to, because, again, humans are batteries. However, they still want the Earth to themselves, so they instead intentionally pollute the planet and send the humans into space so they can avoid the pollution. In other words, their plan is death by pampering. This is shown in WALL-E, the second of the three central films. In Directive A-113, they told the humans not to come back due to the toxic gas from burning up the trash, which of course doesn't harm the machines. Meanwhile, the Cars franchise shows the machines' heyday, but also for the seeds for their eventual fall and second pollution of the Earth due to a lack of physical resources. Only WALL-E survives, due to the fact he's solar-powered and is able to maintain a human connection. Note that almost all the animals died. Some arthropods survived, as shown in Cars 3, WALL-E, and Finding Dory. After the machines died out and the humans returned to Earth, the bugs that remained were more evolved than the rest of the general populace, and after a bit of time, a bug's life occurs. You don't see humans because there aren't a ton around. Meanwhile, another of the Starliners sent by and Large crashes on another planet, and gives the beings there the ideas for the technology and culture we see in Onward. Although there is an alternate theory for how Onward fits into the Pixar theory that seems just as plausible, and that is that Onward takes place in Andy's imagination. I haven't figured out which one I like better. After thousands of years of evolution due to the toxic gases that remained after all the trash got burned, some of the creatures on the Earth became the monsters in Monsters Incorporated, the third of the three central films. However, they need the energy from humans, which through Inside Out is explained to be connected to emotion, so they go back in time to harvest it. Finally, Boo, after developing a connection with Sully, makes it her life mission to find him again, and eventually becomes the Witch and Brave, planting Easter eggs throughout all the films either intentionally or unintentionally during her search for Sully. She sets up shop in medieval Scotland because she realizes that wood is key to time travel, and creates a time loop so that Sully will always be remembered and will never have to suffer the final death as shown in Coco. And now it's time to talk about the shorts. There are 5 Toy Story tunes, namely The Toy Story That Time Forgot, The Toy Story of Terror, Partysaurus Rex, Small Fry, and Hawaiian Vacation. Of these, only Partysaurus Rex has any connection to a Pixar universe outside of Toy Story itself, and that is through the infamous toilet seat cover. This, of course, suggests that Sully went back in time on a trip we weren't told about, and got killed and turned into a toilet seat cover. Note that if Monsters, Inc. is on a parallel timeline with the human timeline, just move forward a set number of years, and if Super Carlin Brothers is correct in stating that Monsters Incorporated takes place in 1955 in the human timeline, since Partysaurus Rex takes place around the year 2005, and according to Randall's scare card, we can assume that Monsters, Inc. takes place 13 years after Monsters University, assuming that Sully attended university at the same age that humans usually attend university. We can safely assume that at the time of Partysaurus Rex, if Sully had just been killed, which again seems plausible because the toilet seat covers seems relatively new, he would have been killed at the ripe old age of 82. I don't know how old 82 is for a monster, but if Earl the Terror Thompson's record of 12 years scaring is any indication, 82 is pretty old. So at least if it is in fact Sully, he had a long and fulfilling life. And it may not even be Sully. Someone may have just seen Sully somehow and said, "That looks like an awesome design for a synthetic toilet seat cover." I just like to look on the bright side. And now to the Disney Plus shorts. There are 3 of these. Inside Pixar, Lamp Life, and Forky Asks a Question. None of these have to do with the Pixar universe apart from connection to Toy Story. That was easy. And now on to the home release shorts. Mike's New Car only has a connection to Monsters Incorporated, and that's it. Jack Jack Attack has a connection to The Incredibles, and that's it. Mr. Incredible and Pals, on the other hand, seemingly does have a connection to the Pixar theory. Super Carlin Brothers made a theory about how the supers were given their powers by the government, and the powers aren't naturally occurring. One of the primary arguments for this is the lack of superpowered villains. However, in this short, Mr. Incredible, Frozone, and Skipper Doo fight Lady Lightbug, a superpowered villain, which seems to disprove this theory and suggest that magic, not the government, is responsible for the supers. We already know from Coco that although most of the magic had disappeared or gone to a different place, by then, some magic does still exist. However, upon closer inspection, the Super Carlin Brothers theory holds. The supers were outlawed in 1947, and thus this couldn't have taken place between 1947 and 1962. This couldn't have taken place after Incredibles 2 either, because Mr. Incredible's suit in this short is blue, not red. Frozone comments that the world is like crazy safe now that Lady Lightbug has been defeated, which shows that this couldn't have occurred during World War II. Mr. Incredible notes that the economy could potentially falter, which suggests that this wasn't during the 1930s and the Great Depression, when the economy was already really bad. This couldn't have been in the 1920s, since the supers would have been too young. Therefore, this could only be from 1945 to 1947, or a TV show during the 1950s, with the Red Scare and Lady Lightbugs being Russian. With the commentator saying, "Tune in next week," I find the second explanation more likely. Therefore, Lady Lightbug doesn't actually exist, and the Super Carlin Brothers theory holds. Mater in the Ghost Light has a connection to Cars, and that's it. Your friend the Rat has a connection to Ratatouille, and that's it. However, I would like to point out that according to the short, apparently not only does Pixar exist in the Pixar universe, but is aware of everything that's going on in the Pixar universe, at least on the animal side of things. I find it unlikely that this actually got published in the Pixar universe, though, because of Remy and Emile's reaction to the Pixar announcement at the end. Burn E has a connection to Wally, and that's it. The up shorts were discussed at the beginning of this video. The Legend of Mordu has a connection to Brave, and that's it. Party Central has a connection to Monsters University, and that's it. Riley's First Date has a connection to Inside Out, and that's it. Marine Life Interviews has a connection to Finding Dory, and that's it. Miss Freider's Racing School has a connection to Cars 3, and that's it. And Auntie Edna has a connection to The Incredibles 2, and that's it. Now on to the Spark shorts. This is where things start to get a bit interesting. Pearl suggests a path to how machines and sentient objects may have entered the corporate world, and most likely takes place in the 80s or 90s. Smash and Grab most likely shows what happened late in the machine's rule of planet Earth, given how similar the setting is to some parts of the Earth shown at the beginning of Wall-E, and most likely takes place during this time. Kitbull shows animosity between humans and animals, and most likely takes place in the 2000s or 2010s. Float shows that, much like as in Coco, that there is still magic in the modern world, and most likely takes place in the 2000s or 2010s. Loop doesn't offer much of the Pixar theory, but there's nothing against it fitting in, so we can count it in. Wind shows where much of the magic went after it left the surface of the Earth, and most likely takes place shortly before the humans left, or shortly after, as this could also suggest that some people chose to wait it out underground rather than go into space like By and Large suggested. And finally, onto the theatrical shorts. Of these, Burrow, Lou, Piper, Sanjay's Super Team, The Blue Umbrella, Presto, One Man Band, Bounden, For the Birds, Jerry's Game, Knick Knack, Tin Toy, Red's Dream, and Luxo Jr. either have no implications on the Pixar theory or repeat ideas already shown. This leaves Bow, Lava, La Luna, Day and Night, Partly Cloud, Lifted, and Andre and Wally B to discuss. Of these, Bow and Day and Night are the simplest to fit in. Bow, while tricky at first to place in the Pixar theory, is actually revealed to be at the end simply a representation of how the woman feels towards her son, so it has surprisingly little bearing on the Pixar universe. While Day and Night doesn't repeat information given in the Pixar universe, these embodiments of Day and Night don't actually interact with anything in the Pixar universe, and are sort of in a realm of their own, so there's nothing against it being in the same universe. This leaves Lava, La Luna, Partly Cloudy, Lifted, and Andre and Wally B. The next easiest to fit in are Lifted and Andre and Wally B. Lifted shows aliens trying to abduct someone, which shows that life on other planets exists in the Pixar universe. This is significant because this provides evidence that Onward could have happened on another planet rather than simply in Andy's imagination. Onward was originally discussed as potentially going into the gaping hole in the timeline between A Bug's Life and Monsters Incorporated by John Negroni, but I find that somewhat implausible considering the two moons. However, there is something that can go there, and that's Andre and Wally B. While it was difficult to animate humans at the time, I think Andre does bear more resemblance to a potentially mutated descendant of the people on the Axiom than to humans today. Additionally, all the trees shown in the short look like they were intentionally planted, possibly through farming. Andre and Wally B hints at growing animosity between the descendants of the Axiom and the descendants of the bugs in A Bug's Life, and that there might be another war between the humans and the animals. Although it suggests in the short that the insects may be initially superior, I think the eventual winner will be the humans, because the monsters look more like humans than bugs, and humans are more susceptible to mutations from the radiation and gases that have already been around the bugs since the humans left anyway. This also suggests that radiation and toxic gas are capable of over generations removing that human internal battery, as the monsters don't have this energy already. This leaves the most problematic shorts: Lava, La Luna, and Partly Cloudy. Lava, while widely considered the most problematic short among people who have taken a look at the shorts, is actually the least problematic of the three. Magic was much more abundant in times past, and in the distant past there was likely a lot of magic, enough to give volcanoes sentience. However, as the presence of magic above ground dimmed, the volcanoes and lava were no longer animate, which is why we don't see singing volcanoes in the Pixar feature films. Lava most likely takes place in prehistoric times, either soon after The Good Dinosaur or far before it. Partly Cloudy is a bit more problematic. While Inside Out and Up have been referenced as difficult films for the short to be in the same universe as, these aren't the films that are the most difficult for the short. In fact, there's a theory out there that Riley was adopted because her mom doesn't seem fatigued at the beginning of Inside Out. The most difficult for the short is actually WALL-E. Because for these two films to be in the same universe would suggest that storks flew across the vast emptiness of space from Earth all the way to by and large starliners. However, the clouds are shown to not only be adept at creating babies, but also creating physical equipment such as the football suit. And it's not outside the realm of imagination for the clouds, realizing all the humans left Earth, to have made spacesuits and MREs to go for the storks. Although that probably sounds ridiculous and would probably look ridiculous. But hey, it works. And the presence of partly cloudy in the Pixar universe actually helps solve some questions in WALL-E. For example, it helps explain why it's implied that none of the humans ever come in physical contact on the axiom, yet they're babies. It also helps explain why there are so frequent storms on Earth, as storms are shown in the short to be the result of clouds being upset. And a situation where the storks have to take multi-year trips to deliver a single baby seems pretty upsetting. And finally, we have the most problematic short of all, La Luna. It seems a lot like a day and night situation where the events would have no bearing on the Pixar universe, but there's one issue. The moon is suggested here to be less than 100 feet from the ocean, but in WALL-E it's shown to be clearly much farther from the Earth than that. Even more glaring, the moon in La Luna has absolutely none of the characteristics in the moon in WALL-E. I still have not figured out how to rectify this issue, and at this point it seems that the conclusion Seamus Gorman reached is correct. The Pixar shorts create problems for the Pixar theory. If you figured out how La Luna fits into the Pixar theory, I encourage you to comment below. And if you're a Pixar executive who wants to disprove the Pixar theory by making a movie that can't fit in, now you know how. Otherwise, sayonara.